Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, Mr. Camenker.
You want to talk about wasteful and inappropriate use of taxpayer money and loss of freedoms. This is about as bad as it probably gets. What I'm talking about is the assault on kids, the emotional, the mental assault on kids through the homosexual programs in the public schools, which Massachusetts funds, unlike just about any other state in the country, to the tune of millions of dollars. An enormous amount of your taxpayer money goes to these kinds of things. Now, I can remember one of the first things that when my kids went to Newton North High, started coming home, things like this pamphlet, Bisexual, Transgender, Gay, Lesbian Awareness Day, where it's given to kids and where it says, if you've never slept with a person of the same sex, how do you know you wouldn't like that? But a certain percentage of all people are that way, and get involved with our gay groups downtown, and here's how you can do it. And then these things started being put up in the hallways. Celebrate Bisexual Awareness Day. And this is not, what I started finding is that this just wasn't in my kids' school, it's in schools all across Massachusetts, and it's being paid for by your money. You've probably heard about these gay straight alliance clubs that are in hundreds of schools across Massachusetts and across the United States. They're so big that the founder of these gay straight alliances, Kevin Jennings, is now Barack Obama's safe school czar and is spending $400 million of your dollars pushing this agenda across the United States. Here's another pamphlet handed out in public schools across Massachusetts, Transgenderism. I don't even want to get into what this is, but these are given to kids who are particularly vulnerable. Coming out transgender to your parents and family by a group called PFLAG, which goes into the public schools. What it does is it takes kids and it says to boys that maybe you'd be better off dressing in women's clothes. You know, maybe this is who you really are. They hold. They not only give these out, but they hold workshops. At Newton North High, where my kids went, they held an assembly where they had a woman talking about how she had her breasts surgically removed so she could be a man, and that she was taking hormones to do that. Now this happened at my kids' school, and it's happening in schools across Massachusetts. It was actually written up in the school newspapers. Here's another. I'm just giving you a few of these. This is something else that was handed out to kids at a state-sponsored youth pride event where kids were bussed in. I think I might be bi. Now what do? A pamphlet for young people questioning their sexuality, where they say bisexuality is perfectly normal, natural, more than one sex. There's no right or wrong way. Society's stereotypes are the problem. It's homophobia and sexual prejudice. And then it goes on to talk about devices that you can use for homosexual sex, which I won't read here, but I can tell you they are very gross, very descriptive for having sex with parts of the body that you don't want to know about. And this is what's given to kids, and this is what's paid for with your tax dollars. Something else that was given out at Reading High School, how to be more understanding and welcoming of transgender people. The whole thing is about understanding and being welcoming, but when you actually read what they're doing, these are the things that they're telling students at Reading High School in Reading, Massachusetts about transgenderism, that you should talk to children about transgender issues. Do not ask the gender of a newborn child. Spend a day a week avoiding using pronouns when referring to someone important in your life. And it goes on and on. Use the words bisexual, gay, lesbian, and transgender. Create single-stall bathrooms.
Wow.
This is the message that is being given to kids and which you guys are paying for. And they not only do that, but they get into the religious aspect. One of the pamphlets that we picked up at one of these youth events is called God Didn't Say That, where they talk about how the Bible never said Jesus Christ condemned homosexuality. The truth is Jesus acknowledged 3 types of eunuchs, among them born eunuchs. Was he referring to gay men or queer folk generally as eunuchs? And it goes on and on with this kind of nonsense. Some of this stuff, I mean, it's difficult for me to tell you about this, but this is what's given to kids. This is what's given and is paid for by your money. You can all see what this is. This is something given to kids, give them instructions on how to have anal sex. Now, I don't even like saying that, but this was given out a state-sponsored event where kids were brought into public schools and was paid for by your money. And then there's the Little Black Book. The Little Black Book was given out at Brookline High School, and it is so gross and so disgusting. It talks about, I can't even describe the sexual things and the regarding excrement and things like that it talks about with kids. This caused such a problem that Governor Romney, who was a governor at the time, went on television after we exposed this to attempt to distance the state of Massachusetts from its creation. Of course, the state of Massachusetts created it with its money, so he couldn't do it very well. But one of the difficult things was that after this happened, the legislature still budgeted money for the organization that did this. And we had people from across the United States of America pressure Governor Romney to veto that. He did veto it, and the legislature overrode his veto. After we went door to door showing them what this was, they still did it. It's an interesting story. And finally, one of the things that I'm going to mention is Mr. Boston Leather. Mr. Boston Leather. Last year, the mayor of Boston, Mayor Menino, used City Hall for what's known as a transgender prom, where the state-sponsored group Bagley and the other state-sponsored groups used state money to bring kids in. And as a chaperone, they had this guy named Mr. Boston Leather. And we had somebody in there that actually took his picture. Mr. Boston Leather was handing out his cards to kids. He identifies himself as a leather bondage, discipline, and sadomasochism fetishist. And you can go and see the things, how he describes himself. This is a man who gets into, bondage and discipline. And again, we exposed this stuff and made a lot of national media, but nobody in the State House was doing it. We sat down with the state budget directors of both the House and the Senate. I sat down with the Senate budget director, and I showed him this stuff. I sat down with the House budget director. We showed him this stuff, and guess what happened this year? This year, Governor Patrick, in his budget that he presented, gave them no money, and they added an enormous amount of money. Massachusetts is cutting services. Teachers are being laid off. The Fernald School for the mentally disabled had to be closed. They're cutting the budget everywhere except in one place, and that is money for the homosexual programs in the public schools. Money for the homosexual programs in the public schools is given enormous. It was given, first of all, $100,000, and that comes from Medicaid money. That comes from federal money that's supposed to be used for Medicaid, which the legislature is giving to them. They're also putting a pool of $11 million and $13 million for student health services. This is 11 and 13 million. That's what, 24 million in all? And it specifically says in these bills that money from that must shall go to the homosexual programs in the public schools. How much of that million? We don't know. But this is what's going on, and it's going on is because everybody's afraid. People are afraid to talk about it. People are afraid to even be next to me when I'm talking about it. But I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to fight it, and we're going to stop it, because nobody knows how this affects kids. Nobody knows how this affects vulnerable kids. And they don't care. They only care about their political power. They only care about the enormous amount of money that some of these lobbies give to them. They only care about not being called names in the Boston Globe, like I am. But we have got to stand up, because it is unbelievable. You talk to some of the mothers whose kids have been affected by this. It is beyond sad and tragic what happens to some of these kids. So our group is MassResistance. We are fighting this. You can go to massresistance.org. We're part of the movement. We're going to take back government.
All right.